Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
This requires a systematic change as opposed to blaming a screen.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
Well, lockdowns continue around about 60% of Australia's population, with New South Wales, the ACT, and Victoria still locked down, New Zealand as well. G'day, this is Dr. Justin Coulson, the author of 6 books about how to make your family happier and the mum to 6 children. Actually, sorry, I'm not the mum.
No, you're not.
I'm looking at the mum to our 6 children. Kylie is my wife and co-host who joins me for the conversation today. Sorry, I just sort of drifted off looking at you. I love what you're wearing today, and I was right there with you thinking about how great you looked and called me the mum to our 6 children. Hey, Kylie, a new study has come out that I've just got to talk about. I know it's not the doctor's desk today, but an Australian-led study, nearly 600,000 kids, 42 nations, published in The Lancet, reveals that boys are spending an average of more than 6 hours per day of recreational screen time.
Is this in response to lockdown?
Yes, right. Yes. And girls are spending more than 5 hours a day using screens for recreation. So we're talking about fairly passive kind of consumption, screen use. And the research shows us that just 2 hours of screen time per day is enough to cause cognitive decline, that is, brain cells start to atrophy, and ill health, physical illness, depression, those kinds of issues. Kind of a horrible story. This comes out of the University of Queensland. A bit of a wake-up call for everyone who says that sitting in front of your screen is going to be okay. It's going to be fine. The research is kind of stressful, isn't it?
It is a little bit, but I'm probably not going to be too popular with my response to it.
Yeah.
I don't see how this is helpful right now.
No.
There's no solutions to it because half the country is in lockdown at the moment. They're not giving us any options to help families right now. And so bringing out a study like this just hurts. It doesn't actually create change. It just leaves parents feeling completely overwhelmed as to know how to do anything different.
Well, I want to counter that research because my position on this has been shifting, not just because of COVID, but because of what the research is telling us generally. And that is that, look, if you're going to spend 6 hours a day on a screen, then it's going to be unhealthy for you, right? Because you're not moving your body and you're not connecting with people. You're not having face-to-face time. You're not practicing the piano or painting or doing something with your brain, like you're just sitting on the couch doing nothing. But the screen has nothing to do with it. If you sat on the couch and did nothing for 6 hours a day, you'd be unhealthy. It would be associated with depression. It would be associated with ill health. It would be associated with cognitive decline. The screen is what draws people to sit on the couch for 6 hours and do nothing, but the screen itself isn't causing it. It's the sitting on the couch and doing nothing for 6 hours that's a problem. Andy Shabalsky, he's an Oxford researcher. I think the guy is great, and he published a piece in the New York Times recently. He said the evidence linking screens to harm is, in reality, and I quote here, the 2 words, paper thin. He said a review published in January by Candice Odgers and Micheline Jensen concluded that the most recent rigorous large-scale studies report only small associations between the amount of daily digital technology use and adolescents' well-being. These associations do not offer a way of distinguishing cause from effect, and as estimated, are unlikely to be of clinical or practical significance. And yet I hear parents daily, literally emailing me every single day, tying themselves in knots, stressing about how much screen time their kids are getting. And it's just not helpful. Like you said, Kylie, it creates so much stress for parents.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting for a second that we don't monitor and we don't set parameters around our children's screen use. But if our whole focus is, oh my gosh, they've watched 2 hours of TV today, when there are so many other bigger issues to deal with, we're not helping anyone. We're actually just causing more conflict in our homes, which is known to have similar impacts.
Yeah, I was thinking about some of the stuff just as you were saying that parents stress about that they probably don't need to. Now, all of these things are important in and of themselves, but I don't think that they're worth the stress that we put on them. Like if we took the stress off, I don't think that the world would end and the kids would actually make safe, healthy, wise decisions anyway.
I remember one of our children literally for about a year would only eat toast with Vegemite.
Yeah.
That was pretty much her diet.
And Weet-Bix for dinner.
Yes. And the amount of emotional turmoil
Yep.
I put myself through as a parent because I couldn't get her to eat anything else.
And do you remember what I used to say to you at dinner time when she wouldn't eat the dinner that you'd so painstakingly and carefully and beautifully cooked?
I don't remember.
I'd just say, give her Weet-Bix. She'll grow out of it. She'll be fine. We don't need to worry about it.
Well, she has a more diverse palate than I do as an adult.
She'll eat anything now. It's amazing. And I think, so we stress about screens. I don't think we need to. We stress about food. I don't think we need to. We stress about how much our kids are exercising. I don't think we need to. We stress about how many extracurricular activities they're doing or whether they're doing the right ones. And should we put them into piano or should we put them into violin or should we put them into clarinet or should they be in band or learn guitar? I don't think it matters. Just let them pick. We worry about lockdown and screens. We worry about whether they're matching clothes. Have you ever looked at the kids and said, you're not wearing that, are you?
Or I can't believe you walked out of the house and you didn't brush your hair.
Yes. We worry about all this stuff.
Did you brush your teeth?
We worry about whether or not they're going to pick up their mess. Our most unclean child is now out of the house and married and her place is spotless. She's a clean
Maybe
freak.
it's spotless when she knows mum and dad are coming through.
Maybe she just does a really great tidy. Now, the place is clean, right? We worry about this stuff and I think that we're getting caught up in the thick of thin things. And when it comes to screens, I don't like it when I walk into the house and see the kids on the screen because I want them to be doing. I want them to be living. I want them to have a whole and balanced life. But before we started to record, what was it that you said about the kids and screen time?
You're going to put me on the spot.
Well, I think this just because it was said off air. I think that you can say it on the podcast. Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
I really don't have a problem if my kids need to zone out for an hour or two of an afternoon because they've had a really big day. I think about the immense stimulus and demand that is placed on our children day in, day out. And I'm talking, our little preppies, our kindergartners, all the way up to our high school students. And I know what it's like after I've had a full-on day and I just need time out. And while there are plenty of other things that they could possibly do, I think if we're going to attack screens and screens being the problem, then as a community, we have to look at why our children are drawn to screens, because once upon a time our kids were drawn to going down to the local park and playing with their friends, but they're not doing that anymore. Why? This requires a systematic change as opposed to blaming a screen.
Well, I don't think that it requires a huge change, but right after the break we're going to talk about the stuff that does matter, because I don't think that matching clothes and a tidy room and kids watching some screens during the afternoon are a problem, so long as they're living a full, balanced, whole childhood. So we'll talk about what matters most right after the break.
It's the Happy Families Podcast.
Imagine a home where discipline got results without anyone having to feel bad or in trouble. The Do's and Don'ts of Discipline is a webinar to help parents set limits with love, compassion and humanity. Find it now at happyfamilies.com.au/shop.
It's the Happy Families Podcast, the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now. And today, we're kind of debunking a few of the myths around screen time.
Well, last week we talked about what goes on under the hood in the Coulson family in terms of how Kylie and I make our mornings work. Now we're sort of saying we're actually pretty hands-off with the way the kids spend their time, and that includes screens. Now, in fairness, we do actually take control of the remote a fair bit because we've got a couple of kids who literally would do nothing but watch the telly if they had full access to the remote. But we're also pretty liberal with how much they do get to watch.
Well, and also over the weekend, we've had a family meeting and we've actually discussed the fact that as a family, we feel like we've been using screens too much lately, and so have reassessed how we will move forward with that. But it's a collaborative effort as opposed to us as the parents dictating what should and shouldn't happen. Yeah,
I'm smiling as you say that because the one person who has the biggest screen issue wasn't in the meeting.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Who was that?
Oh, well, you weren't there either. Well, the two people who have the biggest screen issues in the meeting, it was you and our baby girl, our 7-year-old who just loves to watch it. But here's the thing. When it comes to screens, if the kids are being physically active, if the kids are spending time with others, and if they're spending some focused time on those extracurricular activities that they've chosen to do that matter to them and that build them. I had a couple of days off last week. I was just exhausted, and for the most part, I didn't really do anything productive. And sometimes it's just nice. I mean, the kids live full lives, right? We've got children who have a lot going on. Let's chill out about it. The other thing that I wanted to highlight was just the importance of, like, when you talk about getting caught up in the thick of thin things, it's nice to have a tidy house, but it doesn't have to be perfect all the time. And I don't know how many Saturdays we've sacrificed over the last 20-something years to the god of clean surfaces.
As a parent, my favourite memories and experiences that we've had with our kids is when we've literally just thrown the routine out the window and gone out for a super Saturday, or when we lived near the beach, we literally one morning a week, sometimes 2 or 3, because we loved it so much. We just got the kids out of bed super early and we raced down to the beach and we had an early morning swim. The kids would go to school with dripping wet sandy hair because we'd experienced joy in the water together.
Just on that, you weren't in the meeting that we had yesterday for our family meeting, but I filled you in on this. This coming Friday, the kids are going to be late to school. Because, and for those of you who are in lockdown, we apologise. We're not rubbing it in, but we want to celebrate and live life as best we can. And I just said to the kids, we're going to be late to school on Friday because we're going to the beach. So we're going to head down the beach and have a swim and goof off in the water for, I don't know, as long as it takes. We'll have some cheap, horrible, nasty takeaway breakfast somewhere terrible on the way home and then drop the kids at school whatever time they get there. And I know some people are going to listen to that and say, this is just irresponsible. This is inappropriate. Some people are going to come at us for saying this, but can we just take the pressure off a little bit? Can we stop getting caught up in the thick of thin things? If the kids miss an hour of school on a Friday morning because they've had high quality time at the beach with their family, or riding a bike through the park if you don't live near the beach, or if you're in a lockdown place and you're not allowed to do certain things, I just think we need to focus on the stuff that matters most. And how much screen time the kids are getting, it doesn't matter nearly as much as how much time they're getting with you. It doesn't matter nearly as much as how you're doing. And I think there's also this other thing, Kylie. I know that every now and again I storm into that TV room and I say, what's going on in here? Turn that thing off. And I get really cranky about it. But if I would just stop for a moment and ask myself the question, what is this response going to do to my relationship with this child? I reckon I'd probably respond to the screen issue differently. I reckon I'd probably go and plonk myself on the couch next to her and give her a hug. And after I watched for a couple of minutes, I might say, hey, how much longer has this episode got to go? Let's turn it off and spend some time together after. Like how much better is that than stressing out about screen time all the time?
I think the reality is all of these things are good things. They're all important things. Whether
you mean like screens or food or
whether our children are eating enough food
or
exercising or spending time with friends or all of these things are good things. But I think we just need to put everything into perspective. And if we can just take a step back and acknowledge that, okay, today's been a bad day. I'm not in the right headspace and my kids have been in front of the TV, and that's okay because tomorrow it's going to be different, or next week or whatever. I just think in light of what everyone is experiencing right now, I think it's really important that we just take a step back and be a little bit kind to ourselves.
So let's go back to this study that's come out of the University of Queensland and reflect on that for a second. If kids are spending 4 or 5 hours sitting on a couch every day, whether they're staring at a screen or doing something else, it's not going to be healthy for them. It's going to cause cognitive decline. It's going to cause depression, or it's going to be linked to these things at least, and it may even lead to physical problems. But we've got to stop blaming screens. I think we've actually got to look at ourselves and say, where's the stimulation for the kids? What are we doing to support them? What systemic things, what structural things can we do to help them to move their bodies or to be engaged in life or to have purpose or meaning or have something to do other than sit on the couch and do nothing except stare at a screen?
It's interesting. If I was to dissect a day of screen usage in our house, last weekend when we were in lockdown, I spent 2 hours in front of a screen. That entire time I was having Zoom meetings and conversations with people in very isolated situations. That was such an enriching experience for me. I look at Emily, who loves doing yoga, and she's, does a 30-minute class with yoga.
That's our 7-year-old, for those of you who are new to the podcast, our 7-year-old girl.
Or she pulls out Art Hub and she does drawing. Like all of these things can enrich our lives. So I think putting a number on it is not valuable. What is valuable is if our kids are staring, numbly at a screen for hours on end, that is definitely going to have an impact. But let's just take a step back. Let's look at that a lot more objectively.
Well, we hope we haven't confused you with this. It really is Justin and Kylie, and we really are saying some stuff matters and some stuff doesn't. And yes, screens matter. Yes, the food that your kids eat matters. Yes, whether they're exercising or doing the right thing, cleaning up their rooms, listening to parents, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, it all matters. But it doesn't matter as much as your response to what's going on and how that builds the relationship. And so long as the kids are living full, balanced lives, they're probably going to be okay. I mean, I was a television addict when I was a kid. If you read my mum's journal that she kept on my behalf for the first probably 12 years of my life, all that she ever wrote was Justin watches so much television. And I don't know. I think I'm doing okay.
You turned out okay, you think?
I'm really scared to say I did that as a kid and I turned out all right, because I usually argue pretty strongly against it. But let's just worry about the big stuff. And the big stuff is, do the kids know that they're loved? Are the kids having the opportunities to live enriching lives? If you can say yes to that ongoing nurturing relationship, some useful and healthy limits that they've worked out with you, they're going to be just fine. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media, with Craig Bruce acting as our executive producer. If you'd like more info about how to make your family happier and how to not sweat the small stuff, please check out our Happy Families memberships. You can find premium content in that membership that will guide your family, because a happy family doesn't just happen. We would love to have you as part of the Happy Families family. For all the details, visit happyfamilies.com.au.